If you grew up being abused or neglected, you know the effects linger years later. The stench of a bad childhood can follow you, but there's hope. I'm Dave Lockridge, founder and executive director of ACE Overcomers. The Centers for Disease Control conducted a very revealing scientific study on over 17,000 people called the Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACE study. This study measured how many people were exposed to adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and how they were affected by these experiences years later. Is there a connection between childhood difficulty and later emotional and physical difficulties? Well, the results of the ACE study were staggering. They discovered that adversity in childhood is common and it significantly impacts emotional and physical health decades later.
I'm currently employed with the Merced County Rescue Mission. I'm the Director of Mission Programs for them. I also work for ACE Overcomers, and I teach the ACE curriculum for the recidivism class for ACE. You know, growing up in an abusive household where there was the emotional disconnect, where my father would lash out to me in anger, and I would get hit. You know, thinking back, it's more like I was to be seen and not heard. It went from feeling like it was normal to feeling like there was something wrong with me, because as I grew up, I started looking at other folks and thinking, well, you know, how come they're happy and I'm not? Started off drinking alcohol when I was young, smoking marijuana, and then when I was probably 15, 16 years old, I ended up snorting meth, and the criminal behavior took me to prison, and this went on a pathway for me that lasted for 25 years. I didn't have the normal childhood, so when I walked into the prison doors, the men took a hold of me as a young kid and, you know, taught me how to cut my hair, taught me how to walk, taught me how to dress, taught me how to shave, and that became the father figure that I was looking for all that time. I went into this ACEs class, and I remember the man that was standing up there and he was teaching the ACE class, and it really caught my attention because he had a history similar to mine. And then he started saying about, nothing's wrong with you. He goes, something happened to you. And that really caught my attention because I was trying to figure out after all these years, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? Why am I acting the way I am doing? And I never realized that there was nothing wrong with me. I was just responding to my childhood of things that have actually happened to me. I would say to somebody that's in my position 10 years ago, there's help. Let us help you. And there is a way out. And know that it's not your fault.
I was raised in a household where one of my parents suffered with untreated mental illness and was later diagnosed as bipolar. I ended up being manipulated, coerced, and trapped into human trafficking for a part of my life. I had come to a place where I hated myself. I hated what I had become. I hated everything about me. And so I reached out into the community looking for resources to help me grow and change. And I came across Dave Lockridge and ACE Overcomers and was able to enroll in that class. I have 4 beautiful children, and I'm there and I'm present and I'm loving and I'm patient and I have my moments, but I'm way different than I was in my addiction. We are not our past. Our past does not define us.
2 years ago, I was sexually assaulted, and my daughter was a witness. Well, my therapist or counselor from the Valley Crisis Center gave me a pamphlet of this ACE program class. And, you know, at that point, I'll do anything and everything to see whatever works. So that's how I was introduced to the class, and we started going. I have my own ACEs that I wasn't aware about in my childhood.
Shortly after I was born, my mother fell into meth, and then my dad, he was alcoholic. I was going to go into foster care, but my grandma, she intervened, and she took in me and my 2 older siblings. I really didn't go out much, and if I did go to school, I would get suspended. I mean, I was just a very angry, mean child because I was just hurting, and I just expressed it through my anger. Even till this day, I have trouble maintaining any kind of relationships. Like, I'll talk to you, and then I want my space for a couple days. And to this day, I don't really sleep much because I got PTSD. One thing I've learned is breathing. Reading really helps me too, kind of like self-meditating, counseling.
Well, my mother was just constantly just like abusing us, not physically, but there was time where it was physically, but it was mainly like emotional and mental abuse. But after a while, like when I was like 14, I think, I started smoking and like snorting cocaine as well. At the time, it felt good because like it suppressed my feelings. What caused it was when I first was put in a group home here in Merced. So just being out of that house environment, being out of that environment where I live, is what really helped me reflect on the whole situation.
So a time in my life where I experienced trauma and when something like really affected me was probably throughout my parents' divorce. The way that it affected me, I just felt alone. I didn't know really who I could turn to. I was diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety. No matter what you're going through, no matter what it is, just know that things are going to get better. Kids' mental health, I feel like that's a topic that nobody really wants to talk about, and I feel like it's the topic that we should all be talking about. It's something that really affects kids, and it will continue to affect them throughout their adult life.
As a mother, I know what it feels like to be raising children in the world today and want them to succeed. You know, we know through studying ACEs that a lot of those symptoms are related to having adverse childhood experiences. So the students that I've worked with here at Yosemite High School, like I said, I was brought here 3.5 years ago to work with our most vulnerable populations, and that includes foster, homeless, and displaced youth. The stories are horrendous. I don't think that a lot of adults, unless you've been exposed to their stories, have any idea what our kids are coming to us with. They need one adult that believes in them, that sees them. They're like family to me. They are my kids. I call them my kids, and they have shown that despite the tremendous challenges that you've had in your life, that you can be a leader and be successful and really lead a movement.
I think that some kids come to school just to be with that special person that does support them throughout their educational career. And it's important that we hire good people to put in front of kids because they really do have an influence over them. We're going to get a lot of kids with ACEs, and so we have to build relationships first. It's essential that educators are immersed in trauma-informed care. They have to be able to recognize that something's going on with the child. The story is hugely important in there because a lot of times people will say, well, what's wrong with that kid? And it's not what's wrong with that kid, it's what's happened to that kid. And how can we address what has happened to that kid? If a teacher can take the time to be immersed in trauma-informed care, they know the signs, they know what to look for, and then they can build a relationship from there.
I've been working with Merced for the past 12 years, facilitating classes for parents that have had their children removed and placed in care, as well as for those parents that want to learn additional discipline methods. First and foremost, you have to accept yourself and realize that what you went through is not your fault. Once you get that, then you can start working on the steps to resiliency.
If you have stress, trauma in the home, the youngster is going to develop strategies to combat that. And again, that carries on into adulthood. And so we look at resiliency as an empowering mechanism for people to realize that they can take control of their destiny. It's not something coming and dictating what happens to them, but they have the ability to really impact what the rest of their lives is going to look like.
The ACE study measured exposure to 10 categories of abuse, neglect, and household stressors like substance abuse in the home, divorce, mental illness of a family member, domestic violence, or incarceration. The more a person is exposed to these stressors, the more likely they are to experience health and emotional problems. The more likely they are to have learning difficulties. The more likely they are to have difficulty controlling their emotions. And the more likely they are to engage in substance abuse and have difficulty getting along with others. Well, 2/3 of adults have experienced at least one category of childhood stressors, or ACEs, and nearly 1 out of 4 adults were significantly impacted by childhood abuse. ACEs affect how well we get along with ourselves, with others, and it's time we help overcome adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs.